If you've ever wondered why Catholics line up to whisper their sins to a priest behind a screen, instead of just confessing directly to God, well, let's start with the common objections that only God can forgive sins, that confession was a medieval invention, and that Jesus never told anyone to confess to a priest, all of which are myths I'll debunk with evidence. Let's begin with the Bible itself, where after the resurrection, Jesus appears to the apostles, breathes on them, and says, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I send you. Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." Meaning Jesus explicitly gave these men the authority to forgive or retain sins. And to retain sins, they would obviously need to hear what those sins were, making this a judicial power tied directly to verbal confession. This wasn't a one-time event either, because the early Christians practiced confession to priests from the very start. And by the 3rd century, sacramental confession was universal across the church and not some later invention. The Catechism of the Catholic Church clarifies that only God forgives sins, but Jesus willed that the Church exercise this power in His name, with priests acting in the person of Christ. So when you confess, it is Jesus Himself forgiving you through the priest. And this authority traces back to Matthew 16, verse 19, where Jesus gives Peter the keys of the kingdom, saying, "Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven," an authority passed down through apostolic succession to bishops and priests today. You might ask, why not just confess directly to God? And the answer is that Catholics do confess venial sins directly to God through prayer. And let me quote Pope John Paul II here. And he said, and I quote, "Venial sins can be expiated in various ways outside the sacrament, by prayer, works of mercy, and the reception of the Eucharist. But for mortal sins, the Church teaches sacramental confession is necessary, because it provides tangible healing when you hear the words, 'I absolve you.' It offers accountability to combat pride, and it imparts actual grace to avoid future sin, with St. John Paul II calling it a second baptism that restores what was lost." Historically, private confession became widespread in the 7th century thanks to Irish monks, while the confessional screen was added in the 16th century for anonymity and modesty, especially for women, and the Council of Trent in 1551 defended the practice against Protestant rejection, proving the core sacrament is ancient even if the format evolved. In the end, Catholics confessed to priests because Jesus commanded it in John 20, verse 23. The early church universally practiced it, and it remains a sacrament of healing where Christ works through his ministers, so it's not about the priest's personal power, but about Jesus forgiving you in a concrete, grace-filled way.